Welcome to the Creative Crafters podcast. And we have our special guest, Stephanie Paxman, back again. I am so excited to have her here. She's got so many things on the go. We knew we had to do a second interview because there's so much that she has to share. So, Stephanie, for the listeners, some people may not have heard your first interview. So can you introduce yourself and then we'll get into what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. Bette, it's great to be back again. Thanks for having me. So I'm Stephanie. I live in Washington State. So many years ago, my blog was born and I named it Crafting in the Rain, since I was kind of getting used to all of the rainy, cloudy weather that we have around here, which is great because it just makes everything green. So I've really come to love and appreciate where we're at in this part of the country. Let's see. I've been crafting and loved making things since I was a kid. I remember some projects I did with my mom of like learning how to do puff paint on t-shirts, and we, painted and put some wallpaper in my bedroom, that kind of thing. So as I've gotten older, those interests have kind of morphed and changed and blended. I do a lot of digital stuff now. Things on the computer started to interest me as I started blogging. And I went back to school to get a college degree a few years ago in web design. So yeah, I kind of like to have my hands in lots of different parts and pieces of the creative process.
Wow, web design, that's amazing. That gives you the nice technical background and the ability to do a lot of graphics. I would imagine you do a lot of graphics and that type of stuff when you're doing web design at the same time. So that must really lend to what you're doing right now.
Yeah, to be able to learn design programs like Photoshop and Illustrator. I use that a lot now to create SVGs, either that I'm going to sell or that I just want to use for my own projects. And so it really expands things a lot.
Speaking of projects, you mentioned you have at least two things on the table that you're working on. I'm so curious, what are those?
Right. Okay. Well, one of them is kind of so I was mentioning to you before we officially got started here. We'd recently gotten back from a family reunion in Idaho, and one of the things that we did one day was I kind of took charge of the little craft project we were going to do, and so we made beaded bracelets. So I have some of those leftovers out on my table. I want to make another one. My kids want to make a couple more. We did a couple of different options. One was, the little letter beads that you're familiar with colorful round beads to add to that. And then we also did a version where people could spell out their name or just a special word in Morse code. So I found little silver beads that were circles, and then other ones that were like little longer tubes to represent the dots and dashes. And so that was pretty fun to see people check, they checked the little Morse code chart. Okay, how do you spell this name or this word? So that's there. And then I have a little like rainbow resin project that is kind of ready to go in another part of my desk.
Wow, the rainbow resin sounds really interesting. Are you using the UV resin?
Not for this one, but I have used it on a couple of things. This one will use a little more resin, and the UV works really well for small things because you're going to stick it under a UV light. What I've got here is it's almost going to look like a little stained glass piece. When I've cut out with my laser cutter rainbow and with a couple little clouds on it. And so I'll take the different sections and fill them with different colors of resin, and fingers crossed it'll come out how I want in the end.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. I love the fact that you're using many different mixtures of things and it's not just paper, paper, paper or vinyl, vinyl, vinyl. So what is
Yeah.
your favorite thing right now that you're working on?
Let's see. I have done a few things with resin recently, so that's probably one of my favorite that at least that falls out of the kind of Cricut category that I do a lot of my stuff in. I recently did a resin coated tumbler. I don't remember if you remember, remember seeing a few years ago, 2 or 3, maybe those got really popular. People would have the little tumbler spinners and you coat it with glitter and different colors of resin. And I had never tried one and just kind of got the bug to do that a couple of weeks ago. And it was really fun. It was messy. I definitely learned a lot in making my first one. But that was fun. And then let's see, as far as like other things that I have coming up for the next class I'll be teaching in your summit, I'm going to be doing sublimation ornaments.
Oh, I'm
looking forward
to that one.
to play with those. I have all my supplies. And I first got started with sublimation a few years ago when Cricut first released their infusible ink sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first experience with really even the concept of sublimation, the idea that you could heat up an ink sheet or an ink print to a really high temperature, and then it would turn into a gas and basically just become part of the fabric. So I did infusible ink for a while. At a different family reunion many years ago, we all made personalized mugs. I brought my little mug press, and then everybody got to go home with a mug from the trip. So that was fun. And then let's see, I'm trying to think timeline, like where that kind of shifted. I think maybe almost 2 years ago, a couple of friends of mine put on a summit, a bunch of classes all about sublimation. And so I watched all of those classes and watched people using converted printers or printers specifically for sublimation. And it just kind of opened up even more possibilities of printing photos or printing my own designs instead of just cutting out the infusible ink sheets. They each have their place, and I'll be using both methods when I do the ornaments for my class. So if anybody's kind of thinking about dipping their toe in that, then make sure you stop by my class for that information. But yeah, it takes a little more trial and error. But like I said, it just kind of opens up all the custom stuff that you can do.
Now, you mentioned different printers. You can convert a printer you already have. And once you put sublimation ink inside that printer, I guess there's no going back for a regular printer.
Yeah, that is true. Just because of the chemical makeup of regular printer ink versus sublimation printer ink. So I have a regular inkjet printer that we use for things like homework and when I make stickers. And then I have a different printer that I purchased new and put sublimation ink in it right away. And that's all that is used for.
Yeah, so you order the special sublimation ink then. So anybody that really wants to know how to order these things, they can go to your website?
Yeah, let's see. I'm not sure. I don't think I've done a conversion blog post yet, but if you go to YouTube and search, just like convert printer to sublimation, you'll find several other people who've done videos about it, kind of talking pros and cons. You can see how to do it, what you should buy. So I would recommend that as a good place to start.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my small craft room. So this is a question somebody has, like, all right, I have a laser printer that I do foiling with.
Ooh,
and I have my Epson printer that I use my regular inkjet with a wide 12-inch.
Oh, nice.
So it's really nice. I don't want to convert it because then I can't use it again. So then it's a matter of, okay, where do you put and how do you organize? So you have 2 printers and machinery in a small space. And that's
yeah, it does.
Question. Now, how do you organize all of this?
Yeah. I'm lucky that I have a pretty good space here. So what you see behind me is like one half of my bedroom. So I'm up over here. I've got a couple of windows here to the side. I have a little sewing table where my sublimation printer sits right next to my regular printer. And since it's a sewing table, it's, it's nice and sturdy. I don't feel like it wiggles around at all while things are printing. And then my two Cricut machines, I have one of those like rolling stacked carts.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
I found on Amazon. So it just has flat shelves in it. It's not the like kind of curved up tray kind that you can find, at IKEA and Michael's. This one just has flat shelves on it. And so that's kind of another way I can save space with my Cricut machines. I can move it out of the way when I need to. It's not taking up table space. So that helps too.
So we were talking a little bit about different types of paper and if there's something special for sublimation. Can you fill us in on sort of all the details of the paper and what we need to really get sublimation going?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, there is a specific kind of paper made for sublimation, and it is built so that it will absorb the right amount of ink as it runs through your sublimation printer. And then when it's heated up with an easy press or a heat press, then it's going to release that ink in the form of a gas so that it can get absorbed into whatever you're pressing on. My guess is that if you just ran like a regular either copy paper or laser paper that's made to withstand a little higher heat, your printer would print on it and there would be ink there. But you might find that it either doesn't transfer as well or it gets a little blurry. So you want something specifically made for sublimation so that you get the best results.
Now, you're mentioning somewhere along the line that it's a chemical reaction that you're looking for. So it's just the type of paper obviously has some impact on what happens. So why is one paper different from the other?
I mean, I think it's going to be the texture of it a little bit, the fibers that they use in it. It's just going to it's been tested and manufactured to work hand in hand with that sublimation ink. So there are at least 2 or 3 companies that I know of that make sublimation paper. The Hippo brand does, so they make a paper and an ink. And that's what I use. And again, it's often ideal to match your ink brand and your sublimation paper brand, just because they have tested those things together for the best results. I know another brand of paper is A-Sub. I don't recall if they make ink as well. But again, there's lots and lots of stuff on YouTube about people trying out a specific sublimation printer that's built for sublimation, or there are a couple of different types of printers that you can buy new and then put sublimation ink in, and you kind of just convert it into a sublimation printer. So I don't have anything specific like that on my tutorials yet, but they do exist from other people. But yes,
a lot of people think that this is going to be so expensive to do, but listening to you, it doesn't sound like it's going to be that price if you can convert a printer. I mean, I've looked at Epson printers for Staples for $89, and I think they'll convert quite well. So it's not that expensive. And what about
you don't need a printer with all of the bells and whistles. It doesn't need to be able to fax, and it doesn't need, you're looking for kind of basic, but you use the Epson Eco Tank is a really good one because it has those different wells that you can just fill up with the sublimation ink.
So it doesn't matter what kind of ink you put in the Eco Tank, you just have the empty tanks and then fill it. You mentioned Hippo brand is the one that you use.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of the 4 colors or the 5 basic colors that they come through.
Yeah, there's 4. There's black, and then a red and a blue and a yellow. So I think the magenta, cyan, I can't remember if they call them that for the sublimation inks, but yeah. And yeah, so
right.
And right, yeah, there's no way you can't. I mean, I always tell people to kind of think of it like you're writing with a marker. And if you had a white marker, not like one of the gel pens that can write on black, but if you just had a marker and you were trying to write on something black or dark, it's really not going to show up. So light colored or white colored shirts. And yeah, we talked a little bit about how it's really like this chemical reaction that's happening. This sublimation ink, it's on your paper and it gets heated up really hot, usually somewhere between 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And as it sits there, it goes through this process where it goes right from this basically dried liquid, so a solid, into a gas, and that's called sublimation. And as it's in its gas form, it can bond to the fabric or the base or whatever that you have underneath it, as long as it's polyester. Like there's this kind of chemical binding process, and then it becomes part of the fabric or part of the cup. So you want shirts or hats or whatever that are a really high polyester count. And then other things like if you're doing coasters or mugs, a pouch or a pillowcase, those need to be labeled as a sublimation base or a sublimation product because it means it will have the right coating to interact properly with that ink.
So anything that Cricut basically sells for all of their wearables and blanks, those would probably work beautifully with sublimation beyond
Totally.
just the infusible inks.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If it's got their little infusible ink label on it, then you can use their ink products or your own printed sublimation designs.
Wow, that just opens up a whole new world of possibility. Now, what about things like shoes? I mean, I've seen people just do iron on the shoes. Have you tried anything with shoes at all?
Let's see. So I haven't tried anything with shoes, but I did a little while ago discover you can buy sublimation ready patches. So you would, design what you're making, cut it out so it fits on the inside of a patch, and then you put your design on there, and then the patch can go anywhere you want it to go. You can put it on a hat, or you could iron it or stitch it onto a shoe or onto a backpack. So it's a little bit of a workaround, I guess. And some people have had some success with like a spray on kind of sublimation coating. So something like that might work for a shoe, but I haven't tried it personally. So it would be your own experiment if you want to try it.
It definitely would be an experiment. And that seems to be where we all go. We're always learning something new all the time.
Right. We always want to know if we can, put our design on something else or combine two things that haven't been put together yet. So very fun.
That is fantastic. So one last question. I want our listeners to be able to get a hold of you and learn from you. So if you can give us all your information about how they can either subscribe to your email list, buy your courses, that type of thing.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. So yeah, probably the best place to go first is just my blog, Crafting in the Rain. You'll see an email sign up there on my homepage. There's categories for lots of different posts I've done. And you'll be able to find like my Instagram and my YouTube, links there for some social stuff. I have this year started posting more videos on YouTube. So I do have a couple of sublimation things, still kind of working up for more of those, some Cricut projects, some resin projects. And then to see just kind of what I'm doing day to day or little sneak peeks of what I'm working on at the moment, that would be Instagram. And my handle is Steph_crafting_rain. Or if you just search Crafting in the Rain, it should pop up.
And so it's STEPH_.
Yep.
Crafting_rain.
Yep.
Hey, perfect.
Yeah, I thought I was being so clever when I first signed up, putting little spacers in there, but you can't just have a regular space. I don't know. I probably made it more confusing.
And in the beginning, who knew? Like you say,
we're
learning all the time. So I want to thank you, Stephanie. This has been absolutely fabulous. And we've had Stephanie Paxman as our guest today for the Creative Crafters podcast. So make sure you go back and you listen to her first recording, which talks more about her business, as this one is more about what she does. So I hope you really enjoy this, and thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.